the borrower has the funds for reserves and down payment, the reserves depends on their credit score, has had it in their bank account for a bank statement. Easiest program I've ever done, honestly. Right now I'm doing a bank statement program, 12 months bank statements, either personal or business. Also, I have like less than a handful of conditions on it. We also do offer, also with our alternative documents, just bank statement program, 1099 program, W-2s only, one tax return or asset qualifier. Another one that sets us apart is our investor program, which I haven't done personally, but I know one of the girls has, so they'll talk about it more. And our foreign national, I'm starting one on a foreign national. That one, they just need to have their down payment seasoned in a US bank account for 60 days. And we just ask for a traditional or non-traditional credit line. So it's that simple. There's ways for us to qualify your clients, non-traditionally if they don't qualify traditionally. And our rates are more competitive on the non-traditional side for investors, just so you know. So here's Sandra, so she can talk a little bit more about what she's done.
Thank you. I have done like the community program that is a true no ratio program. It's 20% down, and yes, the reserves depend on the credit score. It can go as little as 3 months of reserves if they have like a 740 or above, and it's truly no ratio. We don't care where they're coming, to pay this debt off with. It's based off of their assets and their credit score. The investor program is another great program for you guys that are dealing with investors, and they're true investors that have the money, and we don't care about the ratio. We can offset the full mortgage payment with an appraisal rental schedule, and if it pairs 1-to-1, then that's all we need. And if it doesn't, then we just go with the no ratio. Again, we don't care. As long as they have the down payment, and depending on their credit score, they can do 15% down payment on a true investor versus the conforming loan that will require either 20 or 25% if they're doing a multifamily, right? On this one, they can do 15% down if they have the right credit score, and then the reserves will depend also on their credit scores with a maximum of 18 months. And they can use a 401k, they can use an IRA at 100% versus the 60% that Fannie and Freddie will dictate on a conforming loan. The foreign national, I also have done a foreign national. It is 30% down payment, and they don't have to have a social, they don't have to have a job here or anything like that. As long as we can see their assets seasoned for 60 days, like Sandra said, here in a US bank, and they have a foreign address and a letter of credit, meaning like from wherever they get their credit sources back at home, whatever home is, then we will accept that as well. And then that's a foreign national to us, okay? So give us a call. We have a lot of options for your buyers. All of these ladies are very seasoned in the business. So whether it's your normal conforming loans, government loans, or outside of the box loans, we have it for you.
So basically, well, they already explained it they covered everything in a nutshell. So really it's catered to, like, especially the investor in the My community where we're not asking for any income documentation. It's really for like your self-employed, your 1099s. I mean, I don't know how many of you all have had those clients and they don't qualify the regular financing channels. They have the credit, but unfortunately they're not reporting enough, which is normal, right? We've seen that. So it's very popular for those kind of clients. I know I've had, most of my experience has been with My community and the investor more than my FHA and Fannie Mae right now. My pipeline's really primarily these products. They've been more popular, especially for, I don't know if you all have had clients coming from California, from other states. They have the cash because they're selling their homes, yet they don't want to tie up maybe all their money. They don't want to buy fully, the house cash. So what I tell my clients is, hey, don't tie up your money. Just give your large down. You'll still have your money there, but it gets them in. I mean, it's like she said, it's one of the easiest loans because we're not asking for no taxes, no W-2s. We don't care, no employment information. As long as they have the minimum credit score requirement and they're 20% down, we're only asking for the 1-month bank statement. And in cases, it's really just the first page of the bank statement. So we're really not asking for much, and it's that simple. Do you want to add anything?
Well, she covered everything, and when we talk about credit scores and when we're talking about community program versus investment, community program is for your primary residence or your second home, okay? investment is a true investment. So when we're talking about credit scores for the primary, your credit scores can be as low as 640. The lower the credit score, the more assets you need in the bank, right, to show that the file is strong. Investor, you need to have a 680 credit score. On that, you also need to make sure that the clients in the last 36 months have owned a home, have had some form of responsibility of home ownership. So those are the kind of things. And when we talk about credit score, they can either have one trade line for 24 months or 2 trade lines active for 12 months. Can somebody tell me what a trade line means? Sorry? Credit card or a car payment, okay? That's the only thing. So even a lot of small businesses or growing businesses that are just in the business for the past 1 year, opened up a spa, nail salon, whatever, they have the money, they just don't have enough time reporting the income, or they don't want to pay the IRS. These are the programs for them, besides, of course, the FHA conventional and VA that we normally do. So if you guys get clients like that, reach out to us, and the best part is if we can approve one of your clients with that program, they surely know somebody that needs that program and will refer you back their friends and family, okay? And she's like, "There's nothing left."
Well, there's nothing left to say. Just thank you for coming. There's lunch out there, so whenever. Okay, yeah, the rates are really good. Our rates are very competitive. We have a great team. Our staff is good. So we have been in the business for a long time. So we are very hard workers. Yes, so we will answer a phone call. So if you guys need anything, let us know. I have flyers with information of the programs. If you need more information about the programs, let me know. I'm going to be there. Already? Thank you.
Martha, she's got a really quick announcement. You want
Yes, I don't need a mic.
You know, Mike? Okay.
I'm chair of the Education Committee, and our event's coming up on April 1st, and it's not a joke, it's April Fool's Day. So we have a great lineup. We have also have Scott Keshner. We need the support of our affiliates and our members. Please buy your tickets and buy them early so you can save $5. So anyway, but we also need the support of affiliates. So if you would like to invest in our members, I have the packages here. So please, I can give them to you, but please support Friday, April 1st. Thank you.
Thank you, Martha. Gentlemen, can I ask our experts to come on up? We have David Curiel, David Gremer, and Jericho Cagle. There are 3 experts that are going to be helping out Scott. You're going to have to share a mic. Oh, okay. Just throw it out to each other. Just very quickly, guys, there's a lot of people here, and I know some of you might have specific situations as far as appraisals are concerned. But I ask that we do have some questions for them, and then we're going to engage with all our realtor friends here. Just keep your questions. The answers are going to be 1 minute or less because we do have limited time. We can't go into a specific question that, oh, my deal is falling apart and all this, okay? And we're not here to blame anybody, so just keep your questions simple. They're taking time from their busy schedules to help us out with our presentation. And so we have David Curiel back here, Jericho Cagle, and David Gremer. Okay. We're going to start off, however, any one of you can, depending on the question, if you want to, whoever wants to tackle the question, and we can do that, or once, if you want to add anything to it, then feel free to jump in, okay? Honda Gents. Hyundai. Monday. Okay, let's, gentlemen, in January of this year, 2022, Fannie Mae announced that they would be accepting desktop appraisals for eligible transactions. What are your thoughts? Do you believe desktop appraisals are more widely used, or they're going to be more widely used? Is it the lights on?
I've been contacted, and I think the other two appraisers up here have been contacted as well, as far as if we'd be willing to be doing desktop appraisals. I think that desktop appraisals have their place for like low loan-to-value ratios or equity line, things of that nature, but for purchase transactions, I don't think it's, in my opinion, it's going to work out well. I think most people have been affected at some point where the appraised value hasn't reached or didn't match the contract value or contract price. So in those instances, there's going to be, usually the seller is the one who would probably be the most, I guess, I don't want to say, use the word aggravated, but they're the ones that are, your seller, if their contract price isn't, the appraisal doesn't come in at it, well, now they've got another, because on these desktop appraisals, the appraiser doesn't go to the property. All you're relying on is information that's given to you. Someone may go out and they may give you photos where somebody else went out there and took photos or video of the property to note the condition, but the appraiser himself or herself never actually stepped foot in the property. So now the seller will, of course, that'll be their grievance, saying, well, the appraiser didn't even go into the house. How can they appraise it at whatever value? Do you have any?
I believe there was a concern is because the appraisers don't go out, and who's going to do the inspection? Who are they going to send? Is it going to be the realtor? Is it going to be, Uber driver? I don't know. That's going to go check out the house, and that's been a concern as far as on the consumer side.
So as far as the inspection data, a lot of the AMCs and lenders are hiring third-party companies to go out and do the measurements, photos, take notes of the property, and then relay that information back to the appraisers. But you still have that gap between the appraiser actually seeing the property physically and the credibility of the information that they're being provided.
Okay, great. When does this start happening? I believe it's starting in March. Yeah, with the desktop appraisals. It was announced in January that they were going to start using them, and I believe March is the starting date. And that's not for everything. It's got to be a qualified transaction. They can't just send, just like David said that, yeah, it's got to be a qualified transaction.
I'm sorry, your mic is working, but we can't hear that.
Does that mean then that appraisers from all over the country can do appraisals anywhere? So they won't know the neighborhoods, right?
That's not, excuse me, that's not necessarily true, because appraisers have to be geographically competent in their markets. And in the past, we have seen appraisers coming in from, like New Mexico, who may not necessarily be that familiar with the market or the neighborhoods. So we still have that requirement to meet, that we're geographically competent to do that appraisal in that neighborhood. I think we are going to see more desktop appraisals coming down. I think that's something that they're going to be pushing. The driver behind that was the fact that appraisals are taking so long to get done, and they're trying to speed up the process. It's what Fannie Mae is trying to do. There are some limitations, as they've pointed out, but they're going to be coming. So. That'll be determined when the orders are placed, the lender will make that decision. Now, if it comes down to the fact that the lender will still have the option to upgrade that to a full appraisal, if the appraisers discover in the process that there's not enough information available to make an adequate appraisal, then we can kick it back to the lender and request it upgraded to a full appraisal.
Does the change to allow desktop appraisals include the VA?
Conventional. We have a mortgage expert saying conventional financing. Okay, great. Thank you. One of the questions that I was asking around, give me some questions. What can I ask? I got several on the solar panels, guys. Is there a benefit to having solar panels? It is El Paso, Texas. We have abundant, sunlight. Do they actually bring value to the house?
My findings are that they do not necessarily add any value to the property. There's several conditions that have to be considered. The lenders will not lend on solar panels that are leased. If it's a leased product, if they're purchased, then it's up to the appraiser to determine whether or not they have any value. And I haven't found yet that that's the case in most cases. Buyers are not necessarily willing to pay an extra $20,000, $30,000, $40,000 just because that house has solar panels.
So touching on his comment, not only can they not be leased, they cannot be financed. They have to be paid off, so there can't be a note on the panels, or else they can't have any contributory value. A couple of the other factors that will dictate the impact of it is the size, how many kilowatts it's producing, because a 3 kilowatt system isn't the same as a 9 kilowatt system. There's a substantial cost difference between installation and the power outage. So if there is any contributory value, you have to take into consideration the size of the system and the market area that it's into. It's like a swimming pool. You're going to spend a lot of money putting it in. You're going to have very little return for the most part because the market's just not supporting any contributory value. And if there is, it's at a significant reduction of what the purchase price was.
So first of all, I'm glad to see that you all are human beings. Thank you. Thank you for making. One of the solar panel companies that was arguing value said that we needed to get a green certified appraiser. Is that so? And is there any in El Paso?
As far as the certification goes, there are courses that appraisers can take as part of their continuing education to get green certified. I don't know of any personally or a list of any here.
I don't know any either. I know I've taken courses for solar panels and green energy systems, but as far as the certification, I don't know if there's any actual certified green appraisers, since there really isn't much demand for it at this point. I don't see anybody going through the cost of doing that. I don't know if, like you said, there is any green certified appraisers. I've taken a couple of green energy classes for my continuing education, but I've had that same argument presented to me from people trying to sell me solar panels when they send out salespeople, 19-year-old kids trying to tell me it's going to add $20,000 to my house. And unfortunately, that's what a lot of people who put them in, they get suckered into that, and the reality is it's just not there. Whether you're a green certified appraiser or not, the amount, it also comes back to what you guys put into your listings. So if you put solar panels and you don't disclose how big the system is, there's no way for us to tell if there is any value or how much it would be. Another way to do that is to disclose what your actual utility bills is, so that if there is solar panels in your utility bill, your savings is $40 a month versus what the average for the neighborhood, you might be able to come to a value on that way as another technique, but it takes a large amount of information to be able to do that. And right now, in the listings that are out there, there's just not enough information for us to do anything with that.
There's a lot of confusion about solar panels. They're a very complex amenity to work with. There's about, I don't know, maybe 8 or 10 different companies out there that are doing solar panels now. They are very popular and they're becoming, more popular in use. The issues to the lenders, for example, is that we need to analyze the contract for the installer who installed it, and we need to analyze the loan agreement to see how long the loan is, what the interest rate is, what the rate of return is going to be on that size of a system, and so on. Interestingly enough, I've discovered that the contracts, some of them, most of them will say that the solar panels are transferable to a new borrower if the house sells. Some of them don't. I have seen a couple of those contracts that specifically say that the solar contract, the loan agreement is not transferable to a new owner. Okay, so in that case, they have to be paid off before the house can sell. I've also seen at least one contract that said that the solar loan is not subordinate to any other loan. Do you think the lender would like to know that before they put a loan on that property? Because if it goes into foreclosure, that solar loan is going to get paid off before the mortgage does. So it's very, very tricky to work with. The big part. It's got to be a trouble spot of some sort for the lender.
As far as, does documentation uploaded to the MLS, does that help you guys? Usage, maybe even the contract for the solar panels? Is that something that could help you when you're doing your assessment?
The hardest thing for us to identify is other sales out there with solar panels, because the MLS doesn't have a specific qualifier for solar panels like it does for, say, a swimming pool. So if you put it in the public comments, then we can search the public comments for solar panels. But even with that, it doesn't always show up. I've asked the MLS folks over here if there will ever be a place on the MLS for us to identify that specific thing, and it hasn't happened yet. But maybe it will.
Our next question, when an undervalued property and contract is terminated, when a contract is terminated because of the value, and it's placed back on the market, okay, why is it that a second appraisal will come in and it meets the value? Are there, I know,
An appraisal, by definition, is the opinion of market value. So it's that you can have us three appraise the same house, and we'll probably have 3 different numbers. They'll probably be close to each other, within 2 or 3%, but it's going to be an opinion. Everybody has their opinion. Of course, the seller has their opinion of what their home is worth or should be valued at. But we're all looking at the same data as far as comparable sales that are available out there. Now, in this instance where it didn't, what was the word that you used? It was below value?
oh, yeah, the below value.
Yeah.
Is it?
Yeah.
That was the question given to me.
It's that appraiser's opinion of current market value as of the effective date, which is the date they went out to the property. Now, circumstances could change once they put the house back on the market. Now, between that time and when it comes under contract again, maybe there were 2 or 3 other sales that occurred that now support a higher value. And that could be the case in that particular instance.
Yeah, I was just going to touch on what he said. There's been a couple of VA instances where I've tidewatered recently, and then there's been a sale that's closed 2 days later that I couldn't utilize because it was after the effective date. That would have helped support the contract price. And so in those instances, you will see the value change drastically between one appraisal and another in a short turnaround time. If we're not able to use a sale that's after the closing, after our effective date of the appraisal, then and it comes on our next one, there's going to change. And there's nothing that we can do about it. It's not that we didn't do what we were supposed to be doing. It's just that that sale wasn't available at the time of the appraisal. So that's happening a lot right now in new construction. I've talked to a couple of lenders trying to delay the appraisal in order to utilize a sale, and they were okay with not doing that, even though it was going to come under value, then under their contract price. But that's one of the issues that we're seeing in new construction is just sales closing after our effective date at a higher price than what the contract price was.
I agree with all that.
I have a question over here, Rita. They need the mic for it. We have an audience on YouTube, so we need to be on the mic.
Can I sing? Well, it kind of goes with what we're talking about right now. Sometimes when we represent either the buyer or the seller, and we depend on an appraisal, we're waiting for the paperwork, just to close, and then it comes low. So my point is, usually they said, hey, well, if you give us the comparables, where do you get this number? So they send us a bunch of paperwork that we have to fill it out and say, okay, well, I got this number, I got this house because of this, and we try to help the appraisal. We do that, we send it back, and in 15 years, only one time, one appraisal said, in my point of view, I made a mistake. I didn't consider this, comparables that you have, and then come back with the right price. But in 15 years, I think it's a long time. No appraisal is saying, yes, I made a mistake, because all of us can make a mistake. So we have to either order a new appraisal, which costs money and time, or put it back on the market and everybody's upset, everybody spend money and time. So I don't know what is the process that we can also help, because we're here to help. At the end of the day, we cannot do it without you guys. So it's kind of a teamwork. So I just wonder what else we can do in case that something happened, because it will, to help the appraisal and say, hey, well, I'm helping you, that's it.
Well, I thought I made a mistake one time, but I found out I was right, actually. To your point, I think, most appraisers are going to admit that we're not infallible, okay? And, we do make mistakes, and, I've been called back to properties to remeasure them, because an agent has raised that question. Sometimes it makes a difference, sometimes it doesn't, okay? The thing that you can do to help us is to make those comparables that you know of available to us, and give us as much information as possible. If you can do that, then we'll look at those, and if there's something there we can use, then we'll certainly use it. The MLS system, is not an infallible system in itself, and sometimes, we can do the same search twice and come up with two different, another 1 or 2 comps that show up in the search. I'm sure you've had that experience too. So, we're certainly willing to listen. I think most appraisers are. There's a few knuckleheads out there that'll probably say, I don't care what you think, I'm the appraiser. And, you have to kind of live with that. But I think in most cases, we're willing to listen, we're willing to hear what you have to say. Give us as much information going in. Don't wait until after the appraisal comes out to tell us, we have these 3 comps that might work, because we're looking at the same stuff, as well.
That leads to maybe one of our
Actually,
other
like,
questions is
can
there
I-
a rebuttal process?
Well, actually, to touch on what you said, one of the biggest things I see is that agents are still relying on the price per square foot. So this is an actual reconsideration I got on a VA, where the comps that they sent back are at 141, 140, and 163 price per square foot. But the subject is 2,100 square feet, and the comps are at 1,500 square feet. So if you're going to send comps that are 700 or 800 feet smaller or bigger, just because of the price per square foot, they're not really comparable sales, and they're not going to be used. You send two-story sales for a one-story or a pool with no pool. They have to be comparable, and they have to be similar to the subject. And a lot of what I get is just price per square foot, whether it's in the area or out of the area, and they're just not comparable properties. So when, and I hate to say it, but maybe 8 to 9 out of 10, that's what I'm getting on my reconsiderations. So they're not comparable properties, and you have to get off of that price per square foot thing, and you have to look at actual how comparable is the sale to the subject.
Just touching on that, some of the most, there's certain criteria that I try to, is it a sale or is it actually comparable to the subject? And what we're trying to do is find the most like property to the subject that we're appraising. Square footage being one, quality of construction being another. You want to be within that neighborhood. You don't want to be outside that, if I'm doing something, you don't want to cross major thoroughfares like in I-10, which is one thing. So you want to be in the neighborhood where that subject property is. And of course, time frame, typically within 6 months. Most lenders want within 6 months, some 90 days, but but the most recent sales and the most like properties to that subject, as Jericho stated, 2,100 square foot home, and they're using properties that are 1,500 square feet. When you do your CMA, I would hope that everyone tries to use certain criteria. The criteria that I mentioned, the quality of construction being same to equal to the subject that's sold recently, and you want to bracket the square footage, at least one smaller, at least one larger than the subject. Try to find the most, if it's an older home, condition is a big thing. New homes, okay, they're all pretty much in good condition because they're new. But when you get into older properties, condition is a big variant there. So.
One of the things you mentioned is the condition or the quality. How do you define quality? See, because we see the MLS, custom this, custom that, highest quality, and you go in and you go, man, this is a really. So, I mean, and especially, I think the next comment or question would be, how are you all going to determine that if you do a desktop?
Well, I don't do any desktop, so I'll I go out to, I try to do everything as a site visit. And as everyone's probably seen an appraisal report, and on there, we have to give it a quality rating. So it's anywhere from, Q1, quality 1, which is the highest, to, I've never used 6, but I've never used anything that low. For new construction, we pretty much, I think all of us do new construction. You have an idea of what a Q4, which is a quality 4 rating is, or Q5, or Q3, Q2. But when you get into resales, then you have to know the neighborhood. And that comes back to, knowing, being what David said was, being competent in the market. So you have to know, you can be in Tierra del Este subdivision, and you have some Q4s, you have some Q3s, and you have to know what is comparable to what. So yeah, as far as quality of construction, there's certain criteria that we're given definitions of what a Q3 and a Q4 should be, but there's, going back, it all goes back to how well do you know your market for quality ratings when you give it a quality rating.
So you mentioned for buildings. So in an area, and obviously they're all built at the same time, roughly going to be the same kind of square footage. How are you going to differentiate are some of the criteria that you see differentiate?
Let me give you an example, if I may. Doing appraisals out in Horizon City. I did 2 appraisals on 2 different houses within 2 blocks of each other. Both of them were 1,500 square feet, 3-bedroom, 2-car garage, so on and so forth. One of them appraised for 120, the other one appraised for 140. So what's the difference? The difference is in who the builders are, okay? You know, this one house, both have a 2-car garage with a driveway in front. This one has a plain concrete driveway. This one has a stamped concrete driveway, okay? They both have a laundry room in the house, not just a laundry room area in the garage, but a laundry room in the house. This one has a shelf in the laundry room. This one has a cabinet in the laundry room. So there's enough of those kinds of differences to make up $20,000 on what is essentially the same house, okay? So the builders do make, who the builders are does make a difference in the price of the house and how it's going to appraise. Now, when you get into resales, then you know, we're depending on you all to help us understand what's in those houses. So a lot of pictures, okay, and a lot of descriptions, okay. But we're going to kind of sort out, you know, what's the, you know, BS, if you will, in the descriptions. You know, don't try to fool the appraisers. Don't put in there that it has a good view if it doesn't really have a good view, because we're going to figure that out, okay? So, but then we start looking, you're not going to find 2 houses that are identical, okay? But they can be of similar quality. So if this one has granite countertops and this one has quartz countertops, well, those are kind of the same. Okay, now you can make an argument for whether this one costs more per square foot than that one, you know, but it's not going to really make that much difference in the overall evaluation of the property. So we're looking at those kinds of things.
Do appraisers kind of speculate future market conditions when determining current market value?
No, we're not looking at future market values of any kind. What appraisers do is we're looking at past experience, comparables that have sold in the past 3 months, 6 months, 12 months maybe, and then trying to project that into the current market. But we're not trying to speculate anything on future values.
So the reason I asked, I once had an appraiser that told me that he was appraising, that the VA wanted them to appraise for the coming correction. And that just didn't sound like 100% right to me.
What's that? Oh, David's saying that he might be doing relocation work that might call for speculation like that. I don't know. I've never been asked to do that.
We have a question. We do have some YouTube viewers, believe it or not. And we do have a few questions from them. Julie wants to know, why are new homes not appraising for at least the sales price quoted by the builder?
We cover that?
Yeah.
Well, new homes are, of course, going to be using new homes to appraise that property. The thing that we're finding is that building costs are escalating so quickly that the builders, when they contract for a house, and then 6 months later they're getting ready to close on it, and the costs have changed. I've seen them actually modify the contracts with an amendment to change that price. I've also seen the builders back out of the contract because of that kind of thing.
There is, as far as touching on to add on to that, if there is an increase in construction costs during the process or right before, if that cost increase could be provided to us, we can consider that as a time adjustment into our time adjustments if there is needed one. But to say that there was just an increase in price or cost without supplying any data to prove it or support it, there's nothing we can do. But if the builder provide those cost increases on material, labor, stuff like that, then we can take that into consideration.
You, Diana Salazar, what's your opinion on using depreciation when or a townhome, a condominium, or single-family home?
Using depreciation?
That was your question, yes.
I'm not sure where that would fit into the conversation necessarily. When appraisers are doing a cost approach to value, which sometimes is requested by the lenders and is often included in new home construction because the lenders want to see that, the depreciation is calculated for that cost approach. But as the lenders will tell you that the thing that they're mostly interested in is what is the sales approach, because what are the houses really selling for? I don't know if that helps her with her answer or not.
Okay, without hurting anybody's feelings, what are, as appraisers, one thing that you wish realtors would know about the process of appraisal? We're here to learn.
I don't know so much about the process, but I think that as appraisers, we would have two things that we run into constantly with the CMAs that we see and with the reconsideration of values coming back sometimes. And that is this. The price per square foot that y'all use to price these properties is not accurate at all. Appraisers don't look at that number. We don't care about that number. We never even consider that number. And so it would help us if in doing your market, your CMAs, that you not use the price per square foot. The other thing that I run into a lot, and the others do, I'm sure too, but they can speak for themselves, is that if you have an apartment or a quarters on that property, do not include that in the living area. If it has a basement, do not include that in the living area, okay? Because we cannot appraise the property that way. And if you market the property that way and sell it that way, then I can almost promise you there's going to be an issue with the appraisal, because we have to separate those two things in the appraisal. And the lenders now know this, and they look for those things. If there's a quarters on the property or an apartment or a basement, they're going to be asking that question from us. So we can't hide it. We can't, try to squeeze that in somewhere or anything. If you would do those two things, it would help us a great deal.
I think, along with what he says, being more accurate in your descriptions, especially with the new automated appraisal programs coming out. New carpet and paint doesn't equal remodeling the house. But so when you put in stuff like that, it can be potentially misleading to some of these programs that they're going to start using, where they scrub public comments and try to utilize a condition rating for these automated valuation products that are going to be coming out, or Spark, or all these other desktop appraisals where they're going to be, where it's not just us scrubbing it, but it's going to be a third party doing it. Reading through your comments, that can lead to problems too. So if it is carpet and paint, put carpet and paint, we're going to see it. If it is remodeling, where they've actually gone and modified the floor plan and gutted the house, then it's remodeling. They just put countertops and tile, that's updating. So the difference in description and quality makes a big difference.
Back to what David said, the more data that you can put in, pictures go a long way to helping the appraiser see the condition of the property. The kitchen, is it remodeled? How extensively was it remodeled? Baths as well. Any other items that were done? If there's photos in there, that goes a long way with helping us determine the condition of the property. Second thing was, David also mentioned, was separating a basement. I recently did one here a couple of weeks ago that had a basement. Of course, it's in central part of town. It had a basement. It was marketed, including both totaled together. Of course, I had to separate them out, as well as the comparables that I looked at. Now I've got to go through, and they were, well, half of them that had basements were marketed with the basement as well, included with the total living area. A couple of them weren't, and they were separated out, and that's how we want, or that would help the appraiser. It would go a long way with helping us determine, okay, the total is this, the basement area is this, the basement, was it finished, is it unfinished, what's the condition of that basement, what's the access to that basement, is it interior only, is it from the outside, walk out, or things of that nature. But the more data that can be put in for the appraiser to review, photos to look at, it goes a long way.
Hi. So on that question with basements and separate apartments, if they're completely refurbished, separate from the square footage, how do you assess the value?
It does have value. It's just on the appraisal report, which I'm sure everyone here has probably looked at the 1004 form, which is what most of the appraisals are reported on. You see the different line items on there. One of them is the GLA, the gross living area, and that'll have the square footage. Right below that, there's a section for basements. So you list on there the basement, whatever it happens to measure out at. So you put that in there. But you can add, if it's got a detached accessory unit, or casita, as some people will label them, or in-law quarters. If you could have the square footage of that, now on the report, it does have value. It would just be on a different line. It wouldn't be with the total gross living area of the property. How do the value on that particular amenity? Typically, no. Now, if some of them are finished in the same quality, same condition, but not always. There's typically, when it's say I'm in central part of town, and it's a detached garage that was converted to living area, and now it's an apartment that they rent out or whatever the case may be, it's not the same value per square foot, if using the square footage number, as the main house. Not that, like I said, not that it doesn't have value, but now we're having to look up other properties that sold that have a similar type of amenity, similar to a pool, where you can support that adjustment of what that amenity, in this case, the dwelling unit, how much value is placed upon that.
I have come across some properties that we've been looking with my clients, and they do have expansions. And they state, let's say, 3,000 square feet, and then I go to CAD and look at the original plans, and it says the original was 2,200, and then on the back they added like 800, and the price per square footage is really high to me compared to the main area, because they include the addition as a living space. And sometimes you can see it's really good quality, sometimes it looks like it really sucks. And you don't even know if they got permits or they just build walls in the porch area, on the cover. So how do we deal with that when we're doing CMAs? Let's say I'm doing a CMA for a 2,800 home, 2,800 square foot home, and then I use a truly comparable build 2,800 versus a 2,200 with an addition. So how do we address those issues?
That's a very good question. It comes up quite frequently. And the answer is that you can include that square footage with some qualifiers, okay? It has to be finished out like the rest of the house. So it has to have flooring like the rest of the house, painted and textured walls, heating and cooling, lighting, ceilings, all like the rest of the house. And it has to be functional with the rest of the house. So if it meets those two criteria, you can include it as living area, even though it doesn't show up in the central appraisal district. You need to know that the lenders have become really smart about appraisals over the last few years. Since the crash of '07, they've become real involved in asking about square footage and, where did you get that from? And so they're going to ask those questions of us. And we can tell them, that that's the case. I'll give you one quick example of a house I did an appraisal where they converted the garage into a living space. Very nicely done, very professionally done, and it looked like the rest of the house and the whole bit. So I included it in the living area and produced the appraisal that way. Got a call back from the lender in a few days after that asking me, was it permitted? I said, I don't know, okay, which I didn't. The homeowner wasn't there when I did the appraisal, so I couldn't ask him that question, but it wasn't really relevant anyway. But they told me that you're going to have to take that square footage out of that living area and redo the appraisal. And I said, no, I don't, and I'm not going to. If you want another opinion, ask another appraiser, but that's going to stay in my appraisal. So those calls are up to the appraiser. When we look at the property, we see what it looks like. Is it functional? I did another appraisal. A guy put an addition on the back of his house, and the only way that you could get to it was walking through the closet in the master bedroom. Okay, that's not functional. Okay, so that's not going to help you an awful lot. So you can include those things if it meets that kind of criteria. Sure. Living space is always more valuable to you than garage space, okay? But if the norm in the neighborhood is that everybody has a two-car garage, then that's going to hurt you a little bit, okay? So you're going to lose a little bit of value in the fact that it doesn't have a garage. Well, it depends on the area, yeah. We have to analyze that.
I have a question about the time frame for conventional appraisals once it's picked up, and there's also a question about getting the appraisal picked up. I hear that many of them are rejected by appraisers. And then once it's picked up, what is the time frame? Is there a time frame for it to go back to the lender?
Well, almost every order that we get from the appraisal management companies have a due date, which we either accept or reject. And sometimes we'll have to tell the lender, I can take this assignment, but I can't have it for you until such and such a date. And then it's up to the lender to decide whether or not that's acceptable to them, considering their closing date and so on and so forth. They might pull that back and send it to another appraiser that can do it faster. There's a time crunch. We're extremely busy. My wife and I are both appraising in our office, and we're turning down probably 20 or 30 orders a day just because we can't get to them. So we're looking weeks out at a time. Once we get to the property and get it inspected, we can usually turn it around in a few days. But getting to them is a challenge right now. Well, I had an AMC call me the other day, and they said, we'll give you $1,000 to do this appraisal for us, and if you can get it in by this date, we'll give you another $500. Now, my response to that was this: you can pay me $8,000 for that appraisal, and I can't get it done any faster because we're booked up for 4 weeks at a time. So it's not the money. We would certainly accept that if we could, but more than Well, the general rule of thumb for us is that we'll go back in time in that neighborhood, maybe go back, 2 years. I did an appraisal out here in Horizon City just last week, and it was a 2,900 square foot house. And in the last 3 years, there was not a single sale larger than that. Now, the part of what we want to do is bracket the square footage. We want to have one bigger and one smaller. We try to bracket the size of the lots and the age of the house and stuff like that. So because I couldn't find one that was bigger, I had to go back 3 years to find a comparable sale that was larger than this house. Time adjustments were taken into consideration to account for the time over 3 years that the market has changed, and so I had to make an adjustment like that. And you have a lot of other things to do. Then the second criteria may be to expand graphically the search area.
So I got a question.
Yes.
So it's a two-part question. My first question is, do you guys only use comparables that are in the MLS? Is that your only criteria? Or do you, whereas like say for example, go over to a private buyer, you use that as a comparable. What is the criteria? I think it's an arm's length.
So in order for us to consider a non-disclosed sale, we need like HUD 1 statements, other information regarding the sale, property information, things that aren't readily available to us. If you just say the sale closed and it's sold for $150,000 and don't provide us any information, we can't use it. Typically, the HUD 1 statement is acceptable, and then if you have an appraisal on the property, you have physical characteristics, photos, anything like that, also beneficial. But it takes more than just an MLS listing on those cases for us to be able to use that property. But we can use them, but you have to be able to supply supporting documentation.
My question is, when you're doing an appraisal on a custom home, super custom home, that are available in the MLS or production, how do you come up with a number in terms of a custom built home?
So I'm sure they've done the same thing. Truly custom built homes, you start reaching out to the builders, see if they're willing to disclose any information, any undisclosed sales, things like that. You just start making phone calls to agents who work that area, who work high-end custom built homes, see if they have anything that they're willing to share with you. Most of the time they're willing to come off of information for appraisals. But you start making phone calls to people who do that to build and sell that property.
What kind of information do you need for custom homes? Like material costs or things like that? Or?
So if it's unlisted, we need to know like what's in the house, room count, quality of the materials, as much as possible. Builder cert, plans of spec, anything that's going to be in that description of materials, if you can get like that, it'd be beneficial.
Hi, I have a question.
As much as we can get.
Back to the basements and the garage. What kind of heating and cooling do you expect for them to have that when you are considering to give it?
What type of heating and cooling basements?
On a basement? Well, we have to, first of all, if it's a basement, any of the walls, exterior walls are below grade, then yeah, it would be considered a basement. Now, one of the things that we're looking at is it finished? Flooring, walls, ceiling, it's not exposed beams on the ceiling, it's finished off. But as far as heating and cooling, to be considered fully finished, yeah, it does have to have heating up to, 50 degrees, 55 degrees? Yeah. The heating source, it's got to be a permanent heating source, something that's permanently attached. I know space heaters where you just plug in, that's not considered permanent heating source. Yeah, thermostat, or anything that's controlled by a thermostat where you can adjust that.
We have time for maybe one more question. One.
Well, depending on what type of financing is being done, there's, of course, conventional, FHA, and VA, and each of them have their own criteria that's required. Let's just use FHA, for instance. Carbon monoxide detector has to be in the hallway leading up to the bedrooms. So if you've got a bedroom or bedrooms, whereas the master is separated on one side of the house and the other bedrooms are on the other side of the house, well, you need a carbon monoxide detector on both. VA requires GFI outlets to be in place in what they consider wet areas, which is around sink areas or in the bathroom or the kitchen. Whereas FHA does, it's not a requirement. It's great to have them, but it's not a requirement. The same thing with conventional. So depending on which product the appraiser is appraising for, there may be different criteria. Now, some of them do overlap. Safety is always a big, one of the issues that everyone's concerned with. So is there any safety issues in the home?
The pool requirements must be met by city code, up to city code, if the property is transferring to a new owner. So if it's a sales transaction, this is going to have to happen. And let me say, first of all, that y'all should not be concerned or afraid or apprehensive at all about calling the appraisers. I think the three of us are more than willing to answer questions. And once again, I know there's some knuckleheads out there that are not going to want to talk to you or get any input from you at all. But I would encourage you to call the appraisers if you have a question about this kind of stuff. So the pools have to meet city code, which means that there has to, one of several different things. They can put a fence around the pool, okay, that has a gate that automatically closes and latches if somebody walks through it. If they don't put a fence around the pool and they're using the fence around the yard as a barrier, then the gates on either side of the house must close and latch automatically. So if you walk through it, it closes and latches behind you. Any back door to the house that goes out to the backyard must have an alarm on it. So if you walk through the door, the alarm goes off. And if it meets those two things, then that's what we're looking for. And door sensors, yeah, the door alarms. And those things can be simple. They don't have to be complicated. You can get a door alarm over at Home Depot for $10. Stick it on there. Yeah. And then they'll ask us to go back out and look at it. A lot of confusion comes around the gate latches because, not everybody has a clear idea about what that is. But that can be a very simple fix as well. It doesn't have to be real expensive, but any gate, passenger gate that goes into the backyard has to have automatically close and latch at the same time.
To add to that gate latch thing, and I've only bring this up because I've had this done to me, they put the latch on the outside. The whole purpose of the latch is to keep people from little kids from being able to reach over and open the gate. So if you put the latch on the outside of the gate where they can just open it, defeats the purpose, and we're just going to require them to move the latch to the other side. Also, they're supposed to be, I believe, a home inspector told me they have to be 10 inches or 12 inches below the top of the gate. I'm not required, but you might want to check on the home inspector on that. But they can't be right to the very top where anybody can just reach over. They have to be sunk down a little bit so little kids can reach over, open the gate, and that's the whole purpose of that.
We've come up right at 1 p.m. Thank you guys, David Gutierrez, David Bremer. Thank you for taking your time. It was very informative. We will send out a survey. If we need to, we'll bring them back. But I want to thank you guys for taking time out of your busy days to come out here. This is the Builder Realtor Committee. There's our next event will be next month, and our first builder, it's a Realtor Builder Committee. Our first builder presenting next month, March, is Icon Homes and Lisa Weiss. So I know this event sold out really quick online. So if you like the content, let us know through the survey what kind of content you want to hear. And just so you know, next month our event's going to be Icon Home. We're the Realtor Builder Committee. We're responsible for creating informational programs, okay, and services that would advance the relationship between the builders, the builder community, and the realtor community. Okay, there is a committee participation form. We do encourage all realtors, anybody, mortgage officers who want to participate in any of the committees. There's several committees here at GEPAR. This is just one of them. Okay, I want to thank Fat Man Catering Service. That was our catering of the fajitas, Sergio Dorador. If you guys, there's a business card in the back if you guys want the phone number. And of course, our lunch sponsor, Change Mortgage, Sandra Canaba and her team. Thank you, everybody, and I hope to see you next month. Hold on.
I'd just like to say that, we welcome the opportunity to talk to you all and be here in these kind of meetings. I don't want to speak for these two guys, but, I would be willing to come out to your office and talk to you at any time about, any of your appraisal issues or questions or, how we, search for comps and stuff like that, if it's ever something you want to do. Thank you.
You guys, the pictures do make a difference. You heard it from the appraisers, okay? I know it's a seller's market, but hire a photographer. It's going to help.